state troopers are giving literal emergency escorts to out-of-state scabs so that they can come in and steal Alabama workers' jobs.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
One of the stories that we've been tracking recently has been the anti-protest bill, which would dramatically increase the authority that cops have to destroy the lives of working people who are protesting their boss and the government. And we think that's bad. Hot take, that's bad. That's what we think. And one of the retorts to this is that, don't you trust the cops? Like, I back the blue. Why don't you? The cops would never do anything bad. Like, don't hurt their feelings. And of course, we don't trust the cops to have any more authority than the insane amount that they already have, because we live in the real world. We live in the real world, and in the real world, we are continuously validated in our apprehension about giving the armed enforcers of the state even more power. In just the last, and just recently, within spitting distance, we're just continually validated. Last week, a cop in Scottsboro shot his wife and then killed himself. She is in critical condition. Last week, a Huntsville school security officer made sexual contact with a student, and of course this isn't as strong as some of the others. It's still an allegation, and he's just a security guard without police authority, apparently. But, there's a similar mentality there. Just a couple months ago, a Huntsville cop killed his wife. 3 years ago, a reporter for BuzzFeed wrote about a rape case in Tuscaloosa that the cops did not pursue, and they sued her for defamation. Last week, a court found her account was true in protected speech. Last year, a Huntsville cop was convicted of murder, and to this day, the chief of police, the city's mayor, the Fraternal Order of Police, which is the country's largest police organization, defend the convicted murderer cop. To this day, all these people defend a convicted murderer. These are all, of course, anecdotes, but all of these are anecdotes within literal spitting distance of where we are broadcasting from. But maybe, let's say you don't like anecdotes. We can also point to the fact that in Huntsville, black folks are 11 times more likely to be arrested for weed than white folks. We can point to multiple studies that have found that cops self-report a domestic abuse rate of about 40%. That's self-reporting.
Wow.
That's self-reporting. These are cops that are saying, like, yeah, I beat up my lady. Like, holy crap. The better question is, why the hell would I trust these people as a group with more power when they clearly cannot behave responsibly with the power that we give them? That's the better question. And I don't understand why people don't ask themselves that question instead of, why don't I trust cops more? Why don't I? Because we live in the real world. Because we see the things that happen around us. We can see research that shows that cops disproportionately attack and discriminate against working people, poor people, minorities, marginalized communities. We can see it is totally evident. We can see the studies that show that that black folks are pulled over for speeding more often in the daylight than white folks, but at nighttime, the disparity disappears. At nighttime, the disparity disappears. So either black folks, for some reason, just drive crazy during the day and then they calm down at night, or cops are behaving in a discriminate way. Those are the two explanations there, and I think one of them is obviously more likely than the other. I mean, there's just so much evidence that we can point to. There are so many reasons not to not only not to give cops more power, but to take away some of the power that they do have. And even for their own good, right? Even for their own good, because we ask police to do too much.
Yeah. Instead of a mental health system and a drug treatment system and a public housing system, we're provided police officers.
Right.
And that doesn't do any of us any good, including the officers themselves. But yeah, it's you can look at the current statistics, you can look at current anecdotes, you can look at the broad history of this country and how policing has its roots in slave patrols. You can see how policing had its roots in the militias, the white militias that were created to go and exterminate native peoples. We can see how union busting has always incorporated law enforcement.
I mean, right here in Alabama, right now, state troopers are giving literal emergency escorts to scabs, to out-of-state scabs, so that they can come in and steal Alabama workers' jobs and try to break the union and try to put more profits in the pockets of New York hedge fund managers. That's what Alabama cops are doing right now to Alabama coal miners and to the community in Brookwood. Why would I give these people more power?
Yeah, I think law and order is not some neutral state. Law and order is not neutral, and neither are the folks who enforce the law and order. There is a clear power dynamic here in terms of who the laws are for, who the laws are written on behalf of and written to punish, and how those laws are actually enforced on the day-to-day basis. And I think that's also an important thing that folks could really use is like the theoretical background here on what is the role of the police in our society. Because we're trained from a very, very young age, from Paw Patrol age, to think that the police are here to keep us safe, to protect our rights. But that's not the role. That's not what they do. To the extent that happens, that's kind of a side effect. That's not their main purpose. Their main purpose is here to exist. To maintain property as it exists, and to maintain law and order, which is essentially the status quo of our social economic system as it exists. That's what they're here for. They're not here to keep people safe in your neighborhood. And I know that there are individuals who join the police force because they want to do that kind of thing. They want to keep people safe. They want to be, the good cop. And I can appreciate folks who want to work within the system to make things better, or who joined, perhaps naively with this idea of bettering their community. But it's not. It goes beyond even just those individuals to a systemic issue there, and it's a systemic setup of how the police are designed to operate. I mean, we just found out in the last few days that American police have so many extra weapons. They're sending weapons to Ukraine. Our police force is so militarized. They have equipment that can be sent to a hot war in Europe. That is just wild, and I think what folks who have the back to blue mentality either don't appreciate or don't want to know, or perhaps because they benefit from the way things are now, is that the police are used very similarly to an occupying force. In so many of our neighborhoods, particularly black and brown and poor neighborhoods, the police are used in a way that would look fairly familiar to folks in Iraq and Afghanistan over the past 20 years, in the ways in which they occupy the neighborhoods and the ways in which they are upholding power.
Yep.
So, anyway, I'll get off that soapbox, but I'm glad you brought it up. And it's the other thing I wanted to address while we're on this topic is the idea of cops as workers. It's my opinion, and there are people who are much smarter than me and much better read than me who would agree with me that cops are not workers, not in the sense that we understand it. Yes, they may sell their time and labor in exchange for a wage or a salary, but they occupy a very different role in our society and our economy, and they are not the same as even firefighters and teachers and other public sector workers.
Right.
They are the guard labor. They are the guard dogs of capital, and I think that's how we have to look at them. And so, I don't consider police unions to be unions. Consider them to be protection rackets for the armed enforcers of the state. I do not see them as my brothers and sisters in the labor movement. They're my human brothers and sisters, and I wish no harm upon them. Mm-hmm. But they do not operate in our economy and our society as working class people in the way the vast majority of us do. It's just a different role. And you can lump in, ICE agents and those types in there with them. And the scary thing is they make up a huge part of the reactionary base in this country.
Right.
The far right is very popular amongst law enforcement, both cops and border patrol agents, ICE agents, those types. The far right utilizes those folks. They're militarized. They're armed and trained. They have a militaristic personality, and cultural basis. And so they're scary.
Yeah.
In fact, on the way here to the studio this morning, I saw one state trooper pull over two different people and saw multiple HPD flying by with sirens. And I'm not going to lie, it made me scared. It set me in a paranoid mood for the rest of the day. It kind of rattled my nerves a little bit. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't even speeding or anything like that, but it was just enough to affect my psyche. And I can only imagine what it would be like for, a black trans woman, driving down the same road at the same time, and what kind of psychic effect that would have.
Right. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.